Sauce the boss in the building. Sauce the boss in the building. Sauce the boss in about you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only. Shout out to King Sauce Boss in the building about you, and it's no one else.
Sauce the boss, yo, Sauce the boss, of course. Hence to the same sauce. Sauce the boss, yo, Sauce the boss, of course. Hence to the same sauce. Sauce the boss.
India for the last 5 days, and I was just in Germany and Amsterdam last week. We've been chasing down the trail of one of America's most infamous criminals that got away. This is a guy that was abusing children in America. He fled the country, and we've been able to track where he went from America, which includes Germany, Amsterdam, all throughout Europe, England. We visited some of his spots, like interviewed people that had seen him and had encountered him there. And we chased him all the way here to India, where tomorrow we're going to be speaking with victims of his from the middle of nowhere here in India. It has been absolutely insane. But I'm saying all this because we're not going to have a video tomorrow on Monday. I have been editing, but I just won't be able to get it done, I don't think, until Tuesday. So everybody, please bear with me. This project has been absolutely insane and so rewarding, terrifying, exciting, fulfilling. And yeah, we'll be back on Tuesday with a new video. It's super exciting. It's the Black Swan Inn. I don't have a video there. I had to take down my last one from years ago. But we were joined by Elton and Overnight. They actually invited us out. So it's an incredible video. But yeah, watch out for the trailer tomorrow. And then I'll see y'all on Tuesday once I have just a little bit extra time to edit and make this video perfect. Anyways, y'all, good night.
The movie Girl in the Basement is based off one of the most disturbing cases ever, so let's explain it. In 1984, 18-year-old Elizabeth Fritzl vanished from her home in Austria. Her parents reported her missing, and for years, her whereabouts remained a complete mystery. But the truth was more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. Josef Fritzl, Elizabeth's own father, had lured her into the basement of their family home and imprisoned her there. He told the rest of the family and police that she had run away to join a cult. What no one knew was that Josef had built a hidden soundproof cellar beneath their home, complete with a reinforced steel door, coated locks, and no natural light. This would become Elizabeth's prison for 24 years. During that time, Josef repeatedly raped and abused her, eventually having 7 children with her. 3 of those children were raised in captivity with her. 3 others were brought upstairs by Josef, claiming they had been mysteriously left on the doorstep with notes from Elizabeth. 1 child died shortly after birth and was incinerated by Josef in a furnace. Elizabeth and her captive children were finally discovered in 2008 when one of the children, Kirsten, then 19, became seriously ill. Josef reluctantly allowed her to be taken to the hospital, which triggered an investigation. Elizabeth was freed and the truth unraveled. In 2009, Josef Fritzl was sentenced to life in prison for murder, rape, incest, enslavement, and false imprisonment. So, if you're still interested in this case, go watch the movie Girl in the Basement.
I have a video of a Jesus Christ statue moving. It was shown by TV Azteca, and a guy named Donatello, he recorded it from an annual Holy Week that they celebrate in Mexico, where they carry a Jesus statue into one of the churches. As he's recording the Jesus statue, you see the head of the statue move. And again, you can let me know if it's fake or if it's real. And it also brings up the whole conversation that we talked about way before. People think, oh, is it a miracle?
Llegando a la iglesia, bajaron a Cristo de su cruz, como toda la Semana Santa. Exactamente, como cada Semana Santa se hace, pusieron su urna y pues yo me puse a grabarlo y se apresuró haciendo como me la acerco tomando su rostro y y mueve su cabeza, levanta su cabecita.
What the fuck? It's all moved, right? Yeah, it like went like. It's like it got comfortable or something. That's just crazy, bro. It's not like the other ones where it's right up and you could kind of debunk it by saying, oh, maybe it's gravity just pulling the hand down or maybe pulling the head down. But there's no, This statue adjusted its head.
Sex, lies, internet chat rooms, and murder. She was called the AOL killer, and honestly, the way she got her secret lover to kill for her is absolutely wild. Cherie and Bruce Miller met at his scrapyard in Flint in Michigan. The pair hit it off straight away and very quickly decided to tie the knot. They'd literally only known each other for 4 months before they decided to get married. It was far too quick to really know each other at all. Regardless, the pair initially were happy when they said "I do" in Vegas on the 23rd of April 1999. Bruce thought Cherie was a great woman for him. Now, her childhood had been very difficult. She was abused growing up and her mum had substance issues. Cherie actually reportedly got married and had a child at the age of just 17. And when that marriage failed, she then got married to another guy who she ended up breaking up with. So Bruce was her third husband. But Bruce wasn't going to judge her because he'd already been married 3 times too. It's reported that Cherie's second husband disturbingly was even arrested at one point for abusing her daughter, but the charges were dropped because of lack of evidence. By the time she was 26, she was a single mum to 3 kids and obviously just really looked to Bruce to support her. And Bruce really wanted to do this. He was a very hardworking man. He was always out trying to earn money for them. She actually spent a lot of time at home just doing whatever she pleased, like just spending his money, and he didn't really mind because he just wanted to keep her happy. This was the late 90s, and us 90s kids know just how simple and like basic computers were back then. I remember my school had 1 computer between all of us and the only program on it was Paint. But Cherie actually ended up stumbling upon some adult chat sites, and she started inappropriately talking to numerous men. I mean, loads and loads of men on there, on like internet forums, internet chat sites. She would talk to random men about like fantasies and stuff for hours and hours. One of these men was Jerry Cassidy, and he seemed like a normal guy, but he'd recently gone through a marriage breakdown. He was kind of depressed. He wasn't really himself. He was looking for a way to fill a void. I think he'd had a job in law enforcement and he'd recently lost his job. He was really a lost soul. Speaking with Cherie online really gave him some meaning back in his life, and he fell for her pretty quickly. He thought she was the perfect woman for him, but she later admitted just feeling like online she was a video game trying to control midways. After talking for a while, they began to meet and have an affair in person. As months went on, she began lying awful stories about her life and her husband. She pretended she was being abused by Bruce. She then told Jerry she'd fallen pregnant with Jerry's child. Now, Jerry believed this, and it almost was like he wanted to believe it. I think he just wanted to start a new life with Cherie. So she told him, like I said, she was pregnant, but spoiler alert, she wasn't. This whole thing, and he believed it. She sent him pictures of a positive pregnancy test. She would stick her belly out when she had like a food baby and pretend that this was a real pregnant stomach. But horrifically, things got even darker. She lied to Jerry and said that Bruce had found out about the pregnancy and beaten her and caused her to lose the baby. Now, Jerry was understandably devastated by this and was comforting her through this supposedly awful time. And pretty soon, another lie. Again, she told him she was pregnant. This time, though, she claimed she was having twins. Jerry was almost desperate at this point for the pair to be together. He wanted her to divorce Bruce and just be with him. After all, he thought she was being abused and carrying his children. Then on the 5th of November, Jerry got a startling email. Now, it was apparently off Bruce, and it was terrifying. The email said he knew about the pregnancy and would force her to get rid of the babies. The next day, another email came through confirming that the babies were gone. Attached was a photo of a battered Cherie. Jerry was horrified, and after contacting Cherie, the pair devised a plan to kill Bruce. But this was all a devastating lie. Cherie had concocted the entire story and sent the emails herself. Bruce was none the wiser, and Cherie had been drawing bruises on herself and staging the photos. On the 8th of November, as Bruce made his way to his yard to begin work, He was approached
about you,
from
and it's no
behind
one
by
else
Jerry.
like you
Jerry
is
was
what they're
armed with
getting.
a shotgun.
Positive vibes only.
Suddenly, Jerry
Shout out to
shot
King
in the
Sauce
chest
Boss
and
and the
killed
build
him.
about
Jerry
you, and
really
it's no
thought that
one
this meant
else
the pair
like you
could
is what
now
they're getting.
finally
Positive
be
vibes
free of
only.
Bruce and be together.
Shout out to King
But
Sauce
he
Boss
couldn't
and
have
the
been more
build
wrong.
about you, and it's
Horrifically,
no
was
one
Bruce's
else
brother
like you
that
is what
found
they're
him
getting.
lying
Positive
dead
vibes
on the
only.
floor. Although Cherie was
Shout out to
initially
King Sauce
seen
Boss and the
bawling her
build
eyes out,
about you, and it's
screaming
no
and
one
crying
else
about her
like you
murdered
is what they're
husband,
getting.
she
Positive
was very
vibes
soon
only.
acting normal again.
Shout out to
She was
King
seen
Sauce.
out in bars, totally unfazed, acting fine. And at this point, Cherie became totally uninterested in Jerry. It was absolutely wild to him. He thought that the pair would now be together, but she just started completely blanking him. Then another blow. She suddenly got a new boyfriend out of nowhere, just weeks later. Everything around Jerry started to crumble. He couldn't believe that she would do this, and he began realizing that he had been manipulated into killing her husband. On the 11th of February 2000, Jerry was found dead in his home. The realization that he'd murdered an innocent man for no reason had been too much to bear for him, and he'd unalived himself. Following his death, his family discovered a briefcase hidden under his bed full of evidence that he collected that would finally prove that Cherie was to blame. This included printouts of the conversations between the pair, concocting the plan for the murder. Finally, Cherie was arrested, and she was ultimately sentenced to life in prison, but even managed to find a fourth husband while she was behind bars.
Nothing has quite disturbed me like the final images of 14-year-old Noah Donahue on CCTV and what happened to him after. On June 21st, 2020, security cameras in Belfast, Ireland captured the bizarre final moments of Noah Donahue. Noah was only 14 and lived with his mom, Fiona. He was an only child and was really close with his mom, and she even described him as her soulmate. That day wasn't unusual, and Noah seemed like his normal, happy self, but the circumstances that followed are strange. At around 5:45 p.m., Noah left his home on his bike to meet up with a couple of friends at a park across town known as Cave Hill. The path he took was a path that he'd taken many times before, and he was wearing his backpack that held his laptop and several books. 5 minutes later, CCTV captured Noah riding down Royal Avenue, which is a really busy street with a ton of stores. But by the time he made it to the end of this street, his backpack was gone. No one knows how he lost it, and CCTV didn't capture what exactly happened to it. At around 6 p.m., a driver reportedly saw Noah fall off his bike at an intersection, and when he got out to try and help him, Noah quickly rode off. The next time he was seen on CCTV, he was riding several miles away from where he was supposed to be meeting with his friends, and now he was completely naked. He was also missing his helmet. A witness also saw him in a heavily populated cul-de-sac, but again, CCTV didn't capture what happened to his clothing or where exactly he lost them. The last known sighting of Noah was at 6:03 p.m. CCTV showed him getting off his bike, still naked, and running down the side of a random house towards a gated park. That was the last time he was seen alive, as he completely vanished after this. Noah was supposed to call his mom at 6:30 that night, but he never did, and he was normally really punctual about this. So when Fiona couldn't get a hold of Noah and when he never came home, she reported him missing to the Police Service of Northern Ireland by 9:30 p.m. A massive search was launched almost immediately, and a search and rescue team found his bike in the cul-de-sac where he was last seen on CCTV. They also found his cell phone along that same path, but what's incredibly strange is that if you remember, Noah was naked that night, but to this day, his clothing has never been found. It would take 6 days for there to be any updates, but it would only bring more questions to this already mysterious case. On June 27th, 2020, Noah's naked body was found in a storm drain half a mile from where he was seen getting off his bike. He was about half a mile deep into this drain, and despite his body having been in the drain for several days at this point, there was hardly any water damage to his body. Before the PSNI even identified Noah, they were adamant that there was no foul play, and for some reason, the medical examiner agreed. Police believe that he entered the drain on his own accord and that the drain was accidentally left unlocked by a maintenance worker. And because of this, the medical examiner stated that he died from drowning. But Noah's mom isn't so sure about that. According to her, the tide comes in twice a day in those tunnels, so at the very least, Noah would have been submerged at least twice a day for those 6 days he was missing. But he only had little water damage and only to his hands and feet. Those drains also contain sewage, and if he was really in there that entire time, you would think that his body would have some insect or rodent damage, but his body had none. The PSNI to this day state that there's no evidence to suggest foul play, and their theory is that he suffered a head injury after falling off of his bike that day and became disoriented, causing him to go into that drain. But so many things don't add up about their theory. Noah didn't know the part of town where he was seen riding his bike, let alone the area with the storm drain. And adding to the mystery is the fact that the storm drain itself is so secluded that people who lived in the area for 20 years didn't even know it existed. So how did a little boy know how to get in there? Noah was also scared of the dark, and the storm drain was pitch black. So it just doesn't make any sense that he would willingly climb in the drain by himself, let alone go as far back as where he was found. And it's also strange to me that police are saying no foul play is suspected when Noah's laptop was found with an actual criminal after he went missing. The criminal in question had previous convictions of theft and robbery, and they said that they just found Noah's backpack on Royal Avenue after his disappearance. And for some reason, authorities just took his word for it, so this person was never linked to Noah's death. There have been many theories as to what could have happened to Noah, such as him possibly being attacked on Royal Avenue that day with a heroin needle, causing that bizarre behavior. Other theories include an initiation ceremony gone wrong, a police cover-up, and even suicide. But those who knew Noah say he would never intentionally hurt himself. Because of how the PSNI completely mishandled this investigation, Fiona took it upon herself to investigate Noah's death. And she actually found that around 3 a.m. Noah disappeared. At least 4 witnesses heard screaming coming from the area where he was last seen. Fiona even brought this information to the police, but they never followed up. It was also brought to light that 2 separate people saw Noah naked in the cul-de-sac that night. But for some reason, it took them 30 hours to report this to police, even with knowing that there was a missing child in the area. Fiona was able to find Noah's last Google search before he left the house that night, and it was a search for Cave Hill, the park where he was supposed to be meeting his friends. So how did he end up in the complete opposite direction that night? Was he going to meet up with someone? And how exactly did he end up in that storm drain? I also want to point out a crucial piece of information. Noah reportedly snuck out of his house just 14 hours before his disappearance. He was caught on CCTV sneaking out at 3:30 a.m. in the pouring rain, wearing a t-shirt, shorts, flip-flops, and some headphones. He returned 30 minutes later, but this time without his flip-flops or headphones. To this day, no one knows where Noah was going that morning, or if he was meeting up with someone, or why he came back missing his shoes and headphones. This information wouldn't come to light until 2 years after his death. But what's crazy is the fact that the PSNI knew about this secret sneak out, even when they were actively searching for Noah when he first went missing. But they didn't tell anyone about this, not even his own mom. An inquest is set to begin this September to comb through the evidence and hopefully provide more answers about this case. But it's left many wondering what truly happened to Noah that summer night.
This woman died after her hair caught on fire. In the 1950s, a woman named Betty went on a date with her boyfriend Joe. She wore her hair in a towering beehive hairstyle, the kind held stiff with layers of flammable hairspray, which was extremely popular at the time. As the night went on, Joe tried to kiss her, but Betty refused, worried her hairstyle would be ruined. Frustrated but trying to stay cool, the two stepped outside to smoke a cigarette. Joe lit her cigarette for her, a casual gesture but one that sparked a nightmare. The flame from his lighter caught the edge of her hairspray-drenched hair, and within seconds, her beehive
about you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting. Positive vibes only.
Burning with the intensity
Shout out to King Saul's boss in the building.
Screaming, Betty tried to swat the flames, but it was far too late. The fire scorched her scalp, seared through to her skull, and cooked her brain from the outside in. Betty died in complete agony, marking one of the most painful deaths ever.
There's this guy, his name is Bob Lazar, who's a physicist who claimed to be hired to work at a base near Area 51 called S4. And S4 is a facility where they worked on alien technology, they back engineered alien technology. And he's the reason why I actually believe that aliens are real. And the crazy part about this whole thing is that he says that alien spacecrafts are fueled by an element called element 115. And he's been saying this claim since the 80s, bro. And element 115, at that time, it didn't exist. So he said this shit before it was on the periodic table.
Wait, so they just added that to the periodic table?
In 2003, they added that to the periodic table. It's called moscovium. And it's not a naturally occurring element on Earth. And it's described to be a very, very heavy element that has its own gravitational pull. And a way to describe it is if you put a bowling ball on a very, very soft mattress, how like everything kind of bends, and we were only able to make 4 atoms of this shit, but it decays in like nanoseconds. So we cannot make an actual stable isotope of this shit. And the way he describes UFOs to fly, they fly tilted. Does that kind of ring a bell or no?
Why?
Do you remember the US Navy video that got released back in the day, like 4 years ago?
Unanswered questions after a 911 call in Pueblo from a funeral home and cemetery. August 11th, just before 3:30 in the morning, the police department communications center got a call. that they refer to as abandoned, meaning the other person hung up. So they called back, got an answer, and heard mostly static.
Hello?
An officer was sent out to check out the funeral home and cemetery and says it was locked up and dark with no one in sight.
So that phone call that you just heard was coming from this funeral home and cemetery in Pueblo, Colorado. The call came in at 3:28 a.m. and when the dispatcher at the police station picked up the phone call, they listened, nobody said anything, and then the caller hung up. However, as you heard in that video, the police dispatcher then called the phone number back, and that's when they got that spooky voice. That is just one of the creepiest things I've ever heard, I do have to say. And that call and voice came from somebody or something within the cemetery gates. There's just something so eerie to me about stories of people receiving phone calls or text messages from their loved ones who have passed on, or even in this case, receiving a phone call from an empty funeral home and cemetery. It's completely unexplainable. To this day, there's been no explanation, and that audio recording haunts me.
What are the chances that the CCTV of this potential murderer blocks out his face in all 3 images? This is the chilling case of Jennifer Kesse. A full deep dive of this case is now out on the Bourne Investigation. It was the 24th of January 2006 in Orlando, Florida. Commuters made their way into their offices that morning, but one girl never arrived at her desk. This was Jennifer Kesse. She was beautiful, as you can see, and 24 years old. Now, she was originally from New Jersey, but was living in Florida, and she was kind, conscientious, a lovely, hardworking young girl. She was extremely career focused, which is why her boss knew something was up when she never showed up at work. A couple of hours went by before he decided to call her parents, Drew and Joyce. And her mum recalled, "She's ambitious and dedicated to her career. When I got the call from her employer that she didn't show for work, I knew something was wrong." That was the beginning of this hellish nightmare. Along with her brother Logan, her parents immediately drove to Jennifer's apartment to see if they could find her. Now, she'd actually bought this apartment herself a few months back and was extremely proud of this. And she'd wanted to get this particular apartment, a condo at Mosaic Millennia, because it was supposedly a gated community. She was a girl living there on her own, and she knew she would be vulnerable, and she was extremely safety conscious. Chillingly, she thought she would be safe there. And I go into tons more detail about this particular apartment in my podcast episode, because it turns out that this was far from the secure area that she thought it was. Now, Jennifer had recently just got back from holidaying with her boyfriend, Rob Allen. The pair had been to St. Croix, and they'd been dating for around a year. They were doing long distance, but they were really trying hard to make it work, and he'd not heard of her since the night prior at around 10 p.m. And Jennifer was extremely safety conscious. She carried pepper spray everywhere. She always locked her doors because her parents had been mugged when she was just a child, so she always knew to be ultra safe. Now, usually when somebody vanishes, I feel like circumstances in their life might be tough. Things might be difficult. But this was so far from reality for Jennifer. Like I said, she had a really good job. She'd just bought her first apartment. She had just been promoted at work, and her and her boyfriend were so in love. Her family even said she was on top of the world. When her parents arrived, there was no sign of Jennifer, but there was also no sign of forced entry or a struggle in her apartment. The only thing really to note that her bathroom was wet. It almost seemed like somebody had got in the shower, had a shower, left the towel, and gone to work. So her parents were obviously frantic, calling hospitals, handing out flyers, doing anything to try and find her. Her bag, keys, and phone were all gone from her apartment. And like I said, it just looked as if she'd got ready for work that morning and left. She typically left her apartment around 7:30 in the morning, and a witness did come forward to say they saw what they thought was her car swerve out of the car park around 7:40 a.m., but they couldn't see which way they were going. Then 2 days later, some chilling information. Jennifer's car had been found parked in another apartment complex car park about a mile down the road. Strangely, it was parked in a visitor's spot and the car was locked. And police haven't revealed really what was found inside of the car, but we do know that some valuables were left in there. So police very quickly ruled out robbery as like a motive for this case. And frustratingly, although police were able to find some CCTV CCTV just prior to midday on the morning she was reported missing, obviously the quality is awful. And the camera didn't actually pick up like a continuous film. It was basically, it took pictures every couple of seconds. What we know from this CCTV footage is that Jennifer's car was parked by this suspect, who pulled into the visitor space, waited 32 seconds, left the car and never looked back. This must have been the luckiest suspect ever, because I just can't believe that the 3 images the camera captured were all with his face behind the posts. Again, loads more on this if you want the deep dive on my podcast, but what really troubles me is, why did the guy move the car? Jennifer clearly wasn't in it at that point. Was it, quick, I need to get rid of this car at the first available car park? Was it, I know where she lives, so I want to try and avoid bumping into the people that presumably are already there looking for her? Was it, I want to try and delay the car being found? Or was it, this car park is somewhere that I know well enough to know that there's a car park with the visitors' spaces and it won't be linked to me, this car park? Please do comment and let me know your opinion, because this is what really bugs me about this case. Why move the car there? So officers tried to collect some CCTV from Jennifer's apartment complex, and there was frustratingly none there. And the supposed gated community that she'd moved into was actually undergoing construction, which meant that the gates were very often just left open. It wasn't secure at all, and there were loads of construction workers working there at the time. Most of them were just undocumented. The investigation was frustratingly unsuccessful, and it wasn't actually until years later that the police decided to interview some of the housekeepers at the apartment. This is where we meet a character called Chino. Now, several people felt that this Chino, which is obviously a nickname, looked like the mystery CCTV guy. He was apparently a maintenance worker at Jennifer's property. And the fact that there were no signs of forced entry really led people to believe that maybe it was a maintenance worker with potentially a spare key that abducted Jennifer. Chino was questioned and did admit to having met Jennifer and having worked at her apartment, but by the time he was looked into, he'd already spent some time in prison for R-ing a teenage girl. He did pass a lie detector, but that doesn't really mean anything because we know how unreliable they are. The case is chillingly still unsolved, and Jennifer's body has never been found, although she was declared legally dead. For a deep dive into theories, like I said, more about this Chino, more about eyewitness accounts, and more shady goings on at that apartment complex, head over to the Born Investigation episode on Jennifer Kessie's case.
Madeleine McCann's disappearance was already terrifying, but nothing could have prepared me for the new evidence they just released. I mean, imagine your 3-year-old child goes missing while on vacation in a different country. She disappears from her bed in the middle of the night while you and your friends are at dinner nearby. So many witnesses come forward claiming to have seen a man carrying a small child resembling yours away from her bedroom. So you think it'll only be a matter of time before she's found and he's caught. But then that doesn't happen, and days turn into weeks, which then turn into nearly 2 decades, and she is still missing. So we know that's what happened to Madeleine, and there is a primary suspect in her case now. But police just found some disturbing evidence on his abandoned property, including kids' toys, 75 swimsuits belonging to little girls, masks, and 6 USB sticks and hard drives, which reportedly contain disturbing photos and evidence suggesting Madeleine is dead. This is one case that has left such a huge gut-wrenching impact on me, and it is still technically unsolved, so let's talk about it. Madeleine McCann was 3 years old when she mysteriously disappeared on May 3rd, 2007. Her mom and dad, Kate and Jerry, both highly skilled doctors and cardiologists, married in 1998. And in 2003, they had Madeleine. Then they welcomed twins, a boy and a girl, in 2005, which Madeleine was so excited about. On April 28th, 2007, the McCann family, along with 7 of their close friends and their children, went to Praia de Luz, Portugal for a 7-night spring break trip. They all stayed in a group of local apartments known as the Waterside Village, the McCanns in apartment 5A, and the rest kind of scattered around them. It was a nice little 2-bedroom ground floor apartment that lay on the same property as the very popular Ocean Club Resort. They specifically chose this apartment/location because almost every night of their trip, Jerry and Kate, along with their friends, would often eat dinner at the tapas restaurant in the resort while their kids slept unattended back at the apartments. From the restaurant, you could basically see the top half of the apartments, so the adults thought that it was safe enough to leave the kids alone while they dined at the nearby restaurant. In addition to being close to the resort, which was about 180 feet away, the McCanns reportedly always kept the front door locked, which was right next to their kids' bedroom. Madeleine and her younger siblings all shared a room, with Madeleine being on her own bed and the twins in a cot in the middle of the room. The bedroom also only had one waist-high window with curtains and a metal exterior shutter that could only be opened from the inside. bed, and the McCanns kept this shut during their entire trip. Madeline slept opposite to this window, so with all of these precautions in place, they felt safe enough to leave Madeline and the twins sleeping in their beds while they went out to eat. This brings us to May 3rd, 2007. The day started out great like usual. The kids went to the resort's daycare, then they all met up for lunch and a swim in the pool. This is the last photo ever taken of 3-year-old Madeline, as she would disappear later that night. Kate and Jerry put the kids to bed around 7 that night. They recalled Madeline sleeping peacefully in her light pink Eeyore pajamas with her favorite blanket and stuffed animal. At around 8:30 p.m., Kate and Jerry left the apartment to go eat dinner at the resort's tapas restaurant with their friends. Like I said, they felt safe leaving the kids alone because it was a pretty short walk, and you could see part of the apartments from the restaurant, but you couldn't see the front door. And although generally speaking it was a close walk, you still had to walk along a narrow public street just to reach the doors of the Ocean Club Resort, and then you had to walk through the resort to the other side of the pool just to get to the restaurant. So really, it wasn't a straightforward walk. For the last 4 nights of their trip, the resort staff had reserved the same table at the same time for the McCanns and their friends, and they left a note to make sure this happened, saying they all had their kids sleeping alone in the apartments, which is kind of scary if you think about it, because anybody could see that. Jerry and Kate and the rest of their friends would all take turns checking on their kids every 30 minutes, and to make it easy, they left the sliding glass patio doors unlocked with the curtains drawn so that they could sneak in without waking them up. The first check was from Jerry at 9:05 p.m., and he said Madeline and the twins were sleeping just fine. But initially, he had left their bedroom door almost all the way closed, but now it was wide open for some reason. Before he left, he cracked it once again and then went back to the restaurant. At around 9:30 p.m., it was Kate's turn to check on her kids, but one of their friends named Matthew offered to do it for her since he also had to go and check on his. Matthew noticed when checking on the McCann's kids that their bedroom door was once again wide open, but he didn't hear them, so without fully checking to see if they were okay and in their beds, he just cracked the door and left. Then 10 p.m. hits, and this is when Kate goes to check.
About you, and it's no one else like you is what they're getting.
She also
Positive vibes
noticed that
only.
the bedroom door was
Shout
wide
out to
open,
King
but
Saul's
when she
balls
went to
in the
close
building.
it slammed shut because of a breeze. When she opened it, she realized that the window in the kids' bedroom was now open, and Madeline was gone. The twins were still sound asleep in their beds, and Madeline's blanket and stuffy were still on her bed, but she was nowhere to be found. Kate then ran back to the restaurant screaming, quote, "Madeline is gone. Someone's taken her," end quote. Within 30 minutes, police were notified, and the resort had activated its missing child search protocol. For several hours, volunteers and the resort staff searched, along with police, but it was like Madeline vanished into thin air. At first, it was assumed that maybe she just wandered off, but it soon became clear that that was not the case. There were so many people searching for Madeline that it didn't matter where you were in the village, you could hear her name being called. The search was intense, and it involved police bringing in tracking dogs and searching waterways, wells, caves, sewers, and the ruins around Praia de Luz, but still nothing was found. Then one of the McCann's friends came forward and reported seeing a suspicious man about 45 minutes before Madeline disappeared, and it was this sighting that really changed the direction of this investigation. So on the night of Madeline's disappearance, one of the family's friends named Jane Tanner took her turn to go and check on her child just after 9 p.m. On her way back to the restaurant 15 minutes later, she recalled seeing a man carrying a child walk in front of her, and it looked like he came from the front of apartment 5A and not far from Madeline's bedroom. It didn't register at the time, but the child looked similar to Madeline, and she was wearing similar looking PJs. Jane described this man as having a European or Mediterranean appearance, dark hair, about 5'7", and looked to be about 35 or 40 years old. She said this man did not look like a tourist. This sighting became known as the Tanner sighting, and this gave police at least a timeline of Madeline's disappearance. Ultimately, though, the Portuguese police deemed this sighting as a red herring, and they concluded that the man Jane saw was likely just another tourist also on vacation who had picked up his child from the resort's nighttime daycare. I guess this man's daughter also had similar PJs as Madeline, and after mimicking the same pose with the same type of outfit, authorities stated they're almost certain that this sighting was not related to her abduction. After this, though, another possible sighting was reported, which did hold some weight. This became known as the Smith sighting, after the last name of the couple who reported it. At around 10 p.m., the couple reported seeing a man about 500 yards from apartment 5A carrying a little girl who they thought was around 3 or 4 years old. She looked strikingly similar to Madeline, and this man was carrying her towards the beach. This man looked to be in his 30s, around a 5'7" with a slim build, had short brown hair, and again did not look like a tourist. The couple said this man seemed uncomfortable carrying this child, like she wasn't his. So police then started questioning if this was a planned abduction, or possibly a burglary gone wrong. Apartment 5A was accessible to the public from two sides, one being the sliding glass door that was left unlocked, which which anyone from the public street could walk into. All you had to do was open a small gate and walk up a set of stairs to get into the living room. The other was the front door, which was supposedly locked, and there were no signs of forced entry. The window in Madeleine's bedroom was a point of contention because it could only be opened from the inside, and again, there were no signs of forced entry there either. But the window did overlook the walkway and parking lot, which was separated from the street by a low wall. Anyone off the street could walk back there. There were a lot of odd sightings of sketchy men kind of casing the house, and in the weeks leading up to Madeleine's disappearance, the neighborhood experienced a lot of burglaries. And on top of this, that exact apartment, 5A, had been broken into before, with the most recent being the guest that rented it right before the McCanns. So this was a real possibility that Madeleine was a victim of a planned abduction. But then the Portuguese police started looking at Jerry and Kate, Madeleine's parents, and this was for a few reasons. Their stories had a lot of inconsistencies in the beginning, including their friends' accounts of what happened. One question was why Kate felt comfortable leaving her twins alone after discovering Madeleine had been kidnapped, instead of just calling for help.
My life, son.
Sauce the boss. It's his birthday. Everybody wish him happy birthday.
Oh, this is big right here, y'all. Everybody wish Sauce, the official boss, happy birthday.
It's a beautiful day.
Let's go. Let's see it in the timeline.
Get you a bag of that.
I like to
light up. Can't fight him, Mr. Hero.
I like to wish.
Can't greet him with two, only the third eye. Killer Vision, PSER, Rent Hospital. Let me on this track. Accidents to opera O's. Conscious, unconscious. Flow riding on my train. Denzel, Chris Pine, unstoppable. Albert Einstein. Imagination is more potent than knowledge, therefore I'm flying off the tracks. Extraterrestrial blunt, I got it on my lap. When the land soul train line, hop up on my dad. They fear what they don't understand. I forgive them because they don't really know no better. Hope let them walk on water. Dancing in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean with a polo sweater. How bad do you want success? I was holding my breath unconsciously. The conscious me woke up and came up for air. I turned 136 to the bomb, but dancing with chops, I guarantee them in the dream. Fight miss, Mr. Clean. Dirty talk, come shots, Listerine. The devil tried to catch me slipping, but my third eye open. I see when I don't know. Body growing out the ground, the reason the coke cups, the pressure coming. Hey, but you're not. You can count on the fingerless hand how many people I can trust. The wordplay insane. Meditate, bring down a plane.
I like to give a big shout to Boys Rose Borough.
Facing the blunt, putting managers on the pressure T attitude, cutting ways, malices wasn't on it. I stayed to myself, I'm known as the cool kid. Come to the moolah, G's on his head like the school days between two legs. The pussy is the basket, I finish a dunk, pull out and shoot my cool J. You see how I do when I do names.
Friday night, and he's watching us on his birthday.
Friday night. He could be anywhere in the world. He's watching us. My life, son.
Sauce the boss.
Oh man, we're back once again.
Wish him happy birthday.
Oh,
you know, it's a
big
beautiful
right here,
day.
y'all. Everybody wish
If you
Sauce,
feeling down, just
the official boss,
get you a bag of that.
happy birthday, man.
Just light up.
Let's go. Let's see it in
Can't
the
fight him, Mr.
timeline.
Hero. Can't greet him with two, only the third eye. Killer Vision, PSER, Rent Hospital. Let me on the track. Accidents to opera O's. Conscious, unconscious. Flow riding on my train. Denzel, Chris Pine, unstoppable. Albert Einstein. Imagination is more potent than knowledge, therefore I'm flying off the tracks. Extraterrestrial blunt, I got it on my lap. When the land soul train line, hop up on my dad. They fear what they don't understand. I forgive them because they don't really know no better. Hope let them walk on water. Dancing in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean with a polo sweater. How bad do you want success? I was holding my breath unconsciously. The conscious me woke up and came up for air. I turned 136 to the bomb, but dancing with chops, I guarantee them in the dreams. Fight miss, Mr. Clean. Dirty talk, come shots, Listerine. The devil tried to catch me slipping, but my third eye open. I see when I don't know. Body growing out the ground, the reason the coke the pressure coming. Hey, but you're not. You can count on the fingerless hand how many people I can trust. The wordplay insane. Meditate, bring down a plane with no passengers on it. Facing the blunt, putting managers on it. Pushing T attitude, cutting ways, analysis wasn't on it. I stayed to myself, I'm known as the cool kid. Come to the moolah, G's on his head like the school days between two legs. The pussy is the basket, I finish it done, pull out and shoot my cool J. You see how I do when I do me.
Wow, look at all the birthday wishes. It's Friday night and he's watching us on his birthday.
Friday night. He could be anywhere in the world. He's watching us.
Oh man, we're back once again.
My life,
you know, it's a beautiful day.
The boss.
If you feeling down, just get you a bag of that.
Oh, this is big right here, y'all.
Just light
Everybody
up.
with sauce.
King Fire, Mr. Head King greeting with two, only the third eye. Killer Vision, PSER, in hospital. Let me on this track. Accidents and opera O's. Conscience, unconscious. Flow riding on my train. Denzel, Chris Brown, unstoppable. Albert Einstein. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Therefore, I'm flying off the tracks. Extraterrestrial blunt. I got it on my lap. When I land Soul Train line, hopping on my dad. They fear what they don't understand. I forgive them because they don't really know no better. Hope let them walk on water. I'm dancing in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean with a polo sweater. How bad do you want success? I was holding my breath unconsciously. The conscious me woke up and came up for air. I turned 136 into the bombardier. Dancing bachata, guaranteed I'm in the dreams. Fire miss, Mr. Clean. Dirty talk, come shots, Mr. Rain. The devil tried to catch me slipping, but my third eye open. I see when I don't look. Boy growing out the ground. The reason the cook, the pressure coming, they mention up. You can count on the fingerless hand how many people I can trust. The word play insane. Meditate, bring down a plane with no passengers on it. Facing the blunt, putting managers on it. Pushing T attitude, cutting ways, analysis wasn't on it. I stayed to myself, I'm known as the cool kid. Come to the moolah, G's on his head like the school days between two legs. The pussy is the basket, I finish the dunk, pull out and shoot my cool J. You see how I do when I do
to say, hey girl, to J girl.
Wow, look at all the birthday wishes. It's Friday night and he's watching us on his birthday.
Friday night.
Oh man,
he could be anywhere in the world.
Once again.
He's watching us.
You know, it's a beautiful day. If you feeling down, just get you a bag of that.
My life, son.
Just light up. King Fire, Mr. Head King greeting with two, only the third eye. Killer Vision, PSER, in hospital. Let me on this track. Accidents and opera O's. Conscience, unconscious. Flow riding on my train. Denzel, Chris Brown, unstoppable. Albert Einstein. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Therefore, I'm flying off the tracks. Extraterrestrial blunt, I got it on my lap. When I land Soul Train line, hop up on my dad. They fear what they don't understand. I forgive them because they don't really know no better. Hope let them walk on water. I'm dancing in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean with a polo sweater. How bad do you want success? I was holding my breath unconsciously. The conscious me woke up and came up for air. I turned 136 to the bombardier. Dancing bachata, guaranteed I'm in the dreams. Fire miss, Mr. Clean. Dirty talk, come shots, Mr. Rain. The devil tried to catch me slipping, but my third eye open. I see when I don't know. Boy growing out the ground. The reason to cook, the pressure coming. They mention none. You can count on the